Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly, the show where I give you guys the top 5 prog news headlines, introduce you guys to some cool new prog singles, and give you updates on what's happening here on the channel on Nathan on Shuffle. It's March 7th, 2025, and I've got some pretty interesting things to talk about. Nothing super major, but there's a lot of big releases, in my opinion, that came out this weekend, today in fact. And just a lot of cool new singles to check out. A lot of interesting things. Playing catch up on a few singles that I probably should have mentioned in prior weeks. So I just wanted to get into it and hopefully make a quick show and give you guys some music to check out. So as for the new releases this week, really it's a big week for me because we've got Jethro Tull and their new album Curious Ruminant coming out today. Fantastic. Ian Anderson, of course, helming this record and being a primary force here. And I've heard it in some really cool flute work. Has that kind of signature folky vibe. So it's a really cool record. Echolyn's album, Time Silent Radio 2 and Time Silent Radio 7, kind of dual album releases, came out this weekend as well officially. I've been listening to it for a couple of months because they gave us a early digital preview copy for those who ordered it through the band. But it's more officially released now. It's out on their Bandcamp page. You can order CDs, I believe, pre-order. It sounds like the CD production was delayed, so those probably won't be coming till later in the month, but you could definitely purchase a digital download or listen on Bandcamp if you are so inclined. Karmakanic came out with their album Transmutation this weekend. Definitely going to be doing a review of this one, right up my wheelhouse in that kind of Flower Kingsy symphonic vein, kind of a who's who of modern prog rock stars. Fantastic record. I can't wait to get into it and talk about it, but it's out there. Jonas Reingold's project, who's a fabulous bassist, played with the Flower Kings, playing now with Steve Hackett as well, who also guests on the record. So fantastic, a must listen for modern prog fans. Unitopia had their live album come out, Alive and Kicking. So that's really interesting. A great Australian prog band. I believe that's available on Bandcamp as well. And Ghost of the Machine has their album Empires Must Fall, a little bit of a lesser-known band, but through progrock.com Essentials label. Fantastic modern prog as well. If you like the similar kind of stuff that I like, very melodic, very well-crafted modern prog, then it should be up your alley as well. So those are all fabulous, well worth your time and attention. Please check out those releases. Getting into the prog news Hot 5, Tiktaalika, Haken's Charlie Griffiths, his solo project. They launched a new single called Fault Lines for their upcoming record. The album actually comes out, I believe, next Friday, March 14th. Gods of Pangea. So this is, I believe, the third single from the record. It's more in a metal vein than a prog vein, obviously. Has a lot of ties to like thrash metal of the 80s. I'm finding it to not totally be my thing, but I want to definitely talk to you guys about it and let you know. Since I'm a big Haken fan, I feel like this is in the wheelhouse of the things I want to talk about. So the album's available for pre-order as usual. It's going to be out next week. Has some really cool talent on it. Really great playing. Darby Todd is the drummer here. Connor Green from Haken proper plays bass on these tracks, and then a whole host of different vocalists. This track in particular has Roddy Walker from Protest the Hero. So interesting stuff. If you're into that, I wanted to point that out and put that single on my list. Nad Sylvan announces a raw and personal new album called Monumentata, and releases a first single from it, Monumentata. This is going to be released on June 20th this year via Inside Out Records. Really interesting first single here. The first single, let me find it, is called That's Not Me. And it has some really interesting disparate influences. It has a little bit of a what he calls a James Brown meets Deep Purple feel. It has a funky side to it, but definitely in that kind of classic rock vein, a groovy feel. So definitely a single worth checking out. Nad Sylvan is a great solo artist who's released a lot of great records that I've really enjoyed. He also sings with Steve Hackett, does a lot of the Peter Gabriel sounding songs of Genesis. He has a voice that really has that kind of a quality to it. but he has his own unique style as well. He's very artistically driven and has a lot of cool stuff in his catalog. So this album, Monumentata, will be available as a limited CD digipack featuring a bonus track, gatefold transparent green LP, and as a digital album. So a new album to put on the radar. Looks like there's a lot of guest appearances from some of the same family of people that you hear from the Steve Hackett band, from Karmakanic's latest. You got Randy McStein, you've got Marco Miniman, Mirko de Mau, Felix Lehrman, we've got Jonas Reingold, Nick Beggs, Tony Levin. Just a who's who of really cool talent. Randy McStein. Should be a cool project, and wanted to mention it in my list here. Also, item number 3, Marillion keyboard player Mark Kelly and daughter Tallulah launch a new podcast called Prog Progeny. I thought this was cool. Nothing much to report here, but I really love podcasts. A lot of people could consider this what I do, kind of a podcast form. So it's interesting. I love Marillion and Mark Kelly. So there should be a lot of interesting things to talk about on this podcast. It looks like Steve Hogarth's been doing a podcast for quite some time, which Mark Kelly has been on a few times. So he wanted to start up his own and thought it would be cool to add his daughter to bring a bit of the non-music side to his life into the podcast. But definitely they'll be talking about some prog as well, as the name seems to imply. So should be cool if you're a fan of Marillion, if you're a fan of podcasts in general, anything prog related, that should be cool to check out. Then item number 4, Dave Kerzner releases It, a celebration of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which features Francis Dunnery. Dave Kerzner has been around the block in the modern prog scene as well, in Project Sound of Contact. Really a cool player. And we get to hear his reimagined take on The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, a classic album from Genesis, featuring not just Francis Dunnery from It Bites, but also Nick DiVirgilio on drums, Billy Sherwood on bass, Fernando Perdomo, and special guest Steve Rothery, Roger King, and more, to deliver this really big celebration album of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Kerzner plays most of the keys on the album and even used many of Tony Banks' actual vintage keyboards, which he now owns on this record. So that's really cool. Kind of a loving tribute to the 50th anniversary of this album. So that's something really to check out. It's now available in standard and deluxe high-res versions for download and CD from Kerzner's Bandcamp page. Additionally, a 14-track highlights compilation of tracks from the album is now streaming on Apple Music and major streaming platforms. So definitely cool. I've heard a little bit of this, and it sounds really great. So just something to check out if you're a fan of the album, fan of those musicians. Wanted to point its attention here. And then American progressive trio Lux Terminus share a new single, PLONK, Plonk. This is a keyboard-driven style of progressive metal, blending kind of a cinematic feel with approach of not really sticking to specific genres and conventions. This is a really cool project. Vikram Shankar is the keyboardist here, who's played with a lot of cool projects, Pain of Salvation, Silent Skies. We've got bassist Brian Kraft and drummer Matthew Kirshner as well. And this new album that the single's from is called Cinder, and it's releasing April 18th. So this is a really great track. I put it on the singles list. Really uplifting and great soundscapes, instrumental, really cool kind of fusion style as well. So I definitely want to put that on the list. There's some guest stars as well on this record. So it should be a really cool one to check out. One I've put on my calendar of upcoming releases that I want to bring to your attention. Also available now for pre-order through Glassville Records and multicolored vinyl and CD digipack formats as well. So now into the singles list. So I've already talked about a few of the singles. We've got Nad Sylvan's That's Not Me, Lux Terminus, Plonk, Tiktaalika's Fault Lines featuring Roddy Walker. Also on the list, I've expanded it into this like really long list of 11 tracks here. It seems like my singles list just gets lengthier and lengthier, but I want to include like all of these cool new prog bands and cool things that I come across throughout the week. So I've got a track from Phase Transition, their new single Veil of Illusions. This is a really cool progressive metal trio with female vocals. Her name is Sophia Becco. She's also a violinist. So a really unique, cool sound in prog metal. I featured their previous track, Becoming Revolution, on a previous singles list. So this is their next single, and their album, In Search of Being, will be out June 6th. So check that out if you're interested in what that might sound like. Eden Song is a band that I've loved in the past. It's been quite a few years since their previous album, which was called Years in the Garden of Years from 2016. They're going to be coming out with a new album called Our Road to Dust this year, and they have the first single from it, which I believe is title track here, Our Road to Dust. So fantastic, has a bit of a folkier vibe. It seems like they've stripped back a little bit, kind of narrowed down in their lineup, lost a few members perhaps. They've been hailed as a great example of contemporary progressive rock by Ian Anderson, and they've been known for their hard-driving rhythm section, flute playing, and lush vocal harmonies, and a bit of an orchestral touch as well. So Eden Song is definitely a band worth checking out, and the new single is really cool. So I definitely want to put on my list. This is more of my own little band that I don't know if quite fits in the framework of most of the stuff I talk about, but I absolutely love Black Country New Road. Kind of more of an indie band. You could consider them part of this kind of post-punk scene, along with Black Midi and Squid and those kinds of bands that come from the same area. But to me, they're a bit more melodic, a bit more accessible than those other groups, and I really love their sound that they have going. So they have a new track called Happy Birthday from their upcoming record Forever How Long, which is just a beautiful, bubbly, positive track. I love it. So I wanted to put that on the list. I'll be definitely talking about their record when it comes out April 4th. So I wanted to put a pin in that one. Pimlico is a band I just found out about, a Norwegian prog instrumental group. Very soothing, cool sounds to them, and I wanted to put their newest track on the list as well, which is called Don't Do That, from their upcoming album Core, which is coming out May 9th. So that's on the list. McStein and Miniman have another single. I did put Survive, their previous single, on my list as well. Maybe I came out a little bit early because some people were mentioning that I might have forgotten about it or didn't mention it in my previous shows, but I'm mentioning it now. They have a new track called Green, which is a bit more laid back and Beatles-esque. A lot of people are saying it's kind of a Rubber Soul era Beatles style. But it's fantastic. Their new album 3 is coming out April 4th. Randy McStein and Marco Miniman are two monsters in the genre, and them collaborating together is just a dream come true for prog fans. So this will be their third album together as a duo. So excited about that one. And I wanted to add in, which was a big oversight on my part from last week, the 3 new Dirt Poor Robins tracks from their deluxe edition of Firebird. Firebird was one of my favorite albums of last year. I think it ranked second, just behind Mir's album. Absolutely love their sound. Maybe not traditional progressive rock, but they definitely have that kind of adventurous spirit, have a bit of a cinematic feel to their work, the conceptual pieces, and just really right in my lane and wheelhouse of blending kind of more adventurous music with these really great melodies and hooks. And they have 3 excellent tracks that I wanted to highlight and feature. So please check these out. Behemoth, Don't Blame Us is one of them. Mad Gods, and The Blur. They're very different from each other, but they're all excellent and all worth your time and attention, making this Firebird record just even better by adding 3 stellar tracks to it. Behemoth, Don't Blame Us is kind of in their more epic kind of style. Mad Gods maybe brings a bit more of a pop edge to the sound. And The Blur is more of a fantastic ballad, just beautifully conceived and wonderfully performed. So those are all excellent, highly recommended tracks. I thought this week that I'd do a Dirt Poor Robins review of sorts. I've been kind of fighting against it because I know I did a review of Firebird already last year, but check out the deluxe edition. It's fantastic, and these extra tracks are just absolutely great. As for the channel this week, I did squeeze in a new review this week. If you didn't catch it, it was from Dominic Sanderson and his latest record, Blazing Revelations. I thought it was fantastic. A little bit rawer in the production style, a little bit more of an independent sound, but really great playing and really harkens back to the classic era of prog. If you love King Crimson and Van der Graaf Generator and early Genesis, this is definitely something to check out. Speaking of early Genesis, I did a reaction with Jana last Sunday of Fountain of Salmacis, which was fantastic. Really loved that one. So check that out if you haven't seen it yet on the channel. It got a fairly good response, so I'm really excited about that one. This upcoming week, I'm planning at least 2 reviews. I've been flirting with doing a couple of others because there's so many big releases, but I'm definitely going to cover Karmakanic's Transmutation. Absolutely adore this record. I think it's one of the highlights of the year so far, so that's definitely coming. As well as a short video on my thoughts about the new Jethro Tull album, Curious Ruminant. I think as a voice in prog on YouTube, I feel like I have to talk about it, even though the newer era of Jethro Tull hasn't really supremely excited me, I must say. I did want to point attention that I've done a review of Echolyn's albums. I kind of posted it probably a bit too early in January, so that's kind of a new release today that deserves more attention, so I want to mention that you can check out my review on that one if you're curious about it. I may post a bit about it on social media or something. So there you go. That's my show today. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode and have some new music to check out. Let me know in the comments anything I missed that you guys have been digging and loving. And check out previous shows. If something you feel was missing from my list, it's possible I may have mentioned it in the past couple weeks. I try to jump on things as quickly as possible, but sometimes people miss stuff, and sometimes it gets a little buried in the later half of the episode. So, but anyways, that's what I got for you. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you guys will stick around and stay subscribed and enjoy the music, everybody. Bye, everybody.